The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason, along with Sue Kalinsky. Sue Ballou, what's going on?
What's going on? I'm actually leaving for New York tomorrow. I'm very excited.
Oh, nice. And you're shooting more for your documentary, right?
Yep.
Now, when you're in New York, do you go see a show? What do you do?
I usually don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm never really there for very long. I mean, I'm only going to be there. I'll be there for 4 days, but I'll be shooting probably 3 of them. And then, I go to see my brother, and I have friends that live there. So
right.
I mostly like to go to see a ball game, if the Mets or Yankees are in town.
That's right.
I don't think that's going to happen.
So I got some feedback on our YouTube show. By the way, if you should go like our YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and search Culture Pop Podcast. And one of the questions is, why are you guys always looking down? Because there's a red light there that's like a camera. And then we're looking down. And I tried to explain that, well, we're looking down because the guest is down on the screen. And then we've got notes on our computers. I'm assuming you do too. So we have to look down. And should we be playing more to that little green light right there?
Well, what do you think? I mean, it's weird to play to the green light because we're talking to somebody.
I know you want to look at them, although is looking at them looking at the green light, or is looking at them looking at the box on the screen?
Well, I'm looking at the green light right now. Yeah. And it's very awkward that I'm not looking at you. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird. So anyway, this is the YouTube show where we look down a little bit. We don't look down. We don't frown upon. We don't look down. No, we don't look down. We're not looking down on people, on our viewers. Yes. By doing this. It's just, you can't. You just can't. It would just change the whole dynamic of the interview because it would just, I wouldn't feel like I'm connecting.
Our guest today is a great one. David Rasche, who is one of the stars of Succession, played the very, very crusty executive Karl. Before we do that, I wanted to throw something at you. So this is interesting. Air New Zealand passengers will now have to step on a scale and be weighed before they set foot on a flight. Now, do you think this is a huge invasion of privacy, or is this just a very smart safety move by Air New Zealand?
I think it's a safety move. I mean, no, really. I mean, do you really think that Air New Zealand really gives a shit, like personally, about how much you weigh? Right. They do. I'm trying to think if there's any other mode of travel. I wonder if on small planes they do that. Yeah, I think they do it on small planes. Like private jets, they do it, I think. Like there's an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think, where they do it and somebody weighs too much and they have to throw some bags off the plane, that kind of thing. But it just seems humiliating that, especially if you're a person who's carrying a few extra pounds, that you've got to step on this scale first, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it is humiliating. But you know what? If I'm a passenger on a plane and it's determined, the safety of the flight is determined by the weight of people on the plane, luggage, carts, food, everything. You got to just bite it. You got to just take the bullet and do it. See, when I'm getting on a scale, I always take my shoes off and my belt off and anything that weighs too much because I want to put up a good number. I wonder if they're allowing that. I like when I go to the doctor and they're moving those
those black things along the thing. I'm always like, well, wait a minute. If you're weighing me for real for my doctor, I want to take my shoes off. I want to take my belt off. I want to make sure I have the lightest weight possible. Does that make sense? Would I be able to do that on Air New Zealand?
Well, you'd be doing it anyway, right? Because in order to get on a plane, to go through the metal
Security.
detector, I mean, you have to take off your belt, you have to take off your shoes, you have to take off your jacket, you have to take off a hat.
Yes, true.
You have to take off a jacket.
Yeah.
So,
And what about the person that throws down a big number? What about the person that throws down a big 350 or whatever? Aren't they embarrassed? And isn't New Zealand Air doing that to them?
I think embarrassment kind of, goes out the window when it comes to safety. Look, I what would be more humiliating is if flight attendant came by and slapped a sandwich out of your hand. or you went to order a pizza on the flight and they were like,
Or there's always that guy that sneaks Sbarro onto the plane.
Right.
The one that's so disgusting because you can smell the Sbarro all over like that person. I think they can knock that tray off there.
No smelly heroes on this flight.
Exactly. All right. Well, for all of you who are flying Air New Zealand, good luck with your weight. All right. Our guest today is one of the greatest character actors in the business. You know him for movies like United 93 and Burn After Reading and In the Loop, among so many other roles on TV and film. His latest project is co-starring in Succession, which has just wrapped up its run on HBO. David Rasche joins us. David, thank you so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate it.
Not at all. My pleasure.
So I am a huge fan of the show. So is Sue. Congratulations. It's the television event of the year. Must be really cool to be part of that.
It is. It's a little sort of an out-of-body experience, because nobody knew, right? After the first season, Jesse said, David, sorry, you haven't done that much to do this year, but you never know. Might be a second season.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it went.
Yeah.
So you mentioned I was an early adopter to the show. I was there from the start, but the show picked up so much momentum leading up to the finale. And I just feel like everybody was watching it. And it almost became like a communal experience. We don't get many of those anymore, but did you pick up on that?
No, but I can see what you're saying. And, what you remind me is I did this play one time with this guy. What was his name? Roderick Cook, a Brit. And he would say, oh, no. He would say, what time? Because we did a play. I don't know. He'd say, no, got to go MTM, Mary Tyler Moore. That was like, had to be there for the Mary Tyler Moore show. I guess that's true. Although, in the end, not that many people have HBO. So you're talking about a very select group, right?
Well, yeah, and I live in West Los Angeles, and I would imagine the show does gigantic ratings in West LA, maybe not as much as Joplin, Missouri, but still, right. In my world, it was a communal experience. Maybe that's the best way to describe it.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never been involved in anything like it, and I've never seen anything like it. I would say, certainly in the last, it's a long time. Even since the third episode, there have been two articles at least in every major newspaper. There's 2 in the Times, 2 in the Guardian, 2 in the Washington Post. Different people, and I said, and everybody's getting interviewed. They're interviewing the dust bunnies. It really comes to the point where everything is you're interviewing her bag. It's really, I've never heard of this kind of attention. And part of it is, it just seemed to have, registered on so many levels, on personal levels, people who knew people, on news levels. We know about the Murdochs, and we know about, Ghislaine Maxwell and her dad and all those people. And we know all about the Trumps, and we know what happened, on January the 6th. And so all that, and then we also know our own parents, and we know people who've been abused. and we see corruption. I don't know. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's this stew, which for some reason, go figure why. Most of life, in my opinion, is accident and chance. I don't know if you think that, right?
Oh yeah, no question.
Yeah.
Like, why I'm on this show? Dumb luck. Dumb luck. Why did I get such incredible lines to say? Luck. Dumb luck. I didn't choose them. I didn't write them. And yet I get the reflected glory. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. I didn't write them. Any fool could have said those lines and been, any other fool besides me is what I meant.
Well, I don't know. You're being very modest about you being a fool.
Listen, you look around, right? It's a total accident, and why things go the way they go. The fact that this show happened to come now, and I don't know if you read in the Washington Post, in the Guardian, Georgia Pritchett, who was one of the writers, wrote a very interesting article about how at the very beginning the writers weren't sure whether a show like this, written by a bunch of Brits, and it is, 80%, about Americans, would be of any interest to anybody, right? And Jesse wrote it also. If you're interested in the show,
yeah.
Well, he wrote a very interesting article. He wrote it about the beginnings in the Guardian. Did you read that?
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, you should look that up because it'll show you how this show was no accident. They went through 30 drafts, 50 drafts. Some of the shows go through 30 drafts. That's how much work. Oh, it's just the sheer intellectual force afoot in this show, and everybody was overqualified. Right, the AD was way overqualified for his job. The set designer was way overqualified. He could have been curing cancer. These people are so bright, and each were brilliant in their own way. Gregor, we had who was the camera number one. A lot of what you see and the reaction that you have is because Gregor moves over. Sometimes they tell him to, and sometimes they ask him to, and sometimes he'll go over and then he'll go down, and then he knows the script, so he'll zoom on a line or something. Everyone's contribution. It's a constellation that comes around Halley's Comet.
I would love to have, seen or read, the evolution of these scripts and all the changes, because, you talk to people and they're like, well, it's a comedy. Well, no, it's a drama. And like people say, oh, it's not really a comedy. And it's like, well, it is. It's like the most brilliant, comedic, nasty show I've ever seen.
Yes. And, everybody talks about the echoes of Shakespeare, and that is certainly true. Sometimes obviously true, sometimes not so obviously true. But another way in which it echoes Shakespeare is the use of language. Given any other show, it's like, Jim, where are the keys? I don't know. I thought you had them. No, I put them on the desk. Oh, someone must have. No, none of that. None of words as a conveyance for a plot.
Yeah.
Oh, the words were all interesting in and of themselves and for themselves. I should have looked it up because I said this before in another situation, but how many words did Shakespeare invent? And these guys had a ball inventing swear words, and, like, I'll never forget, I did this movie, it was called In the Loop, which
I love that movie. So good.
Jesse wrote on, and what's his name says, fuckity bye. Right? It's like, okay, somebody came together. That would be fun.
Yes, what I remember about that movie is Mimi Kennedy with the bloody nose and how she was trying
with her teeth.
With her teeth. With her teeth.
Yeah. Bleeding. What?
So good.
What?
So good.
I never. It's the same in this. Look at one whole thing last season. One whole episode was that somebody had a UTI.
Yeah. Yeah.
and the world shook.
So how did it work with the scripts? Like, did you get the full season 4 when you started shooting? When you started reading, were you as surprised as we were that it was Tom that was going to be the big winner?
You asked 2 questions. The first one was, did you get all the scripts at the beginning? And my response to that is, are you kidding me? Oh my God, no. Sometimes this stuff showed up the night before. It was, I mean, he works. Who was it said that? Oh, it was Scott Ferguson, who is one of our producers. He had a friend who was the producer for Borat, the Borat movies.
Yeah.
And he said that Sacha Baron Cohen is best when the police are running up the stairs. That's when he's funniest. And that could be sort of the same for Jesse. It's late at night. It's not coming. We don't have it. Where's episode 6? I don't know. They said it would be coming. I don't know. My apologies, blah, blah, blah. And it's brilliant. And I mean, and sometimes, and I've seen that, I have to say there was one script, I don't even remember which it was, which I thought was sort of, mediocre. And by the time it got to the shooting script, it was as brilliant as any of the rest. I mean, they're so smart.
So the second part of that question, because I did ask a double-barreled question there. When you were reading it, were you thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be Tom?
No, I never thought about it. Frankly, I never did. I guess I thought that the last gesture of the last season of 3.
Yep.
When Logan puts his hand on Tom's shoulder, that said a lot. I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think that. But if you think like these guys think, and in terms of the kinds of decisions they make, it's not going to be somebody easy like Shiver. It's going to be, and the whole thing is tumbling down and can't get put together again, right? Humpty Dumpty is smashed, and everyone's going down because. And I showed you why in the first 3 seasons.
Yeah. Let me jump in and throw something out there. So this is the way people write and think about the show and made predictions. Have you heard the Bill Wambsgans theory? Do you know this one?
I have heard that.
The unassisted triple play that he made in the World Series and the way he took out 3 executives the way he did. Is there any truth to that, do you think?
I do not know, but I'll tell you this. This is the only show that has ever been on television that has sent people scurrying to a John Berryman poem. Right. Titles. I mean, are you kidding? What? We're all going, what does that mean? I don't know. Well, it's from Dream Poem 29. What? Shit, never read that. Don't remember that from college. And here we are thumbing through our Nortons, looking for Dream, whatever it was. I don't know. I don't, if anyone would have that secret, it would be him. He would have used something like that. It would be he, but I really don't know.
I want to know what it's like to be on a Jesse Armstrong set. Like, I've worked on sitcoms, and I've worked on Sex and the City, and I a lot of writing happened after the final script appears. So while you're shooting, there's a lot that changes.
Yes.
What was it like on Succession?
Well, the way that he shot it was not that he was the first, but I don't know. Was Armando the first person? I don't know. Maybe he did it in the thick of it. But what he would do is, when we did, and they did the same thing on Succession. You would shoot out the script as written. I mean, word for word. Everybody knew all the words, and you shot it exactly as. And then they would say, all right, let's have a free one. And then you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. You can walk out the door. It doesn't matter. And if you want another free one, they could conceivably do that for you too.
Wow.
So you have the best of both worlds. And Armando said, or they say Armando over there. They don't say Armando. Like,
is this Armando Iannucci?
Yes. He said that one of the reasons why he did that was to raise the comfort level of the cast. that, the ability to just, pick up a thing and throw it or do whatever you want to do. You become more familiar with who you are and where you are by that kind of, and he would let it roll. And a lot of times these guys would let it roll too. When the scene was over, the cameras would keep rolling and there could be some juicy tidbit might appear.
Nice.
But yes, and in answer to your comment about Sex and the City, yes. And as a matter of fact, Butter My Bean Bowl was one of those. I believe the line I said, well, butter my bean bowl. One of them was, it used to be, well, flibberty gibbet. And then they said, try one, do butter my bean bowl. All right. Well, and so that's the one that survived. But there were always a lot of alternatives.
Yeah. So I'm obligated to ask about Jeremy Strong. You had a great scene with Jeremy Strong where you sort of dressed him down. I think that was the Living Plus episode. And there's been a lot said about Jeremy and his acting style. And I think Brian Cox may have had a thing or two to say about it. What was it like working with him and doing that particular scene?
He was completely normal.
Completely normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had a good scene. It was a great scene. He knew it. I knew it. I mean, we knew it when we read it. That's where Georgia Pritchett and Will, that was theirs script. And it was just, there wasn't a word you wanted to change. It's not just the words, it's the phrasing, it's the pacing of the way these guys write. And they know how it's going to be funny and how it's going to be interesting. And so no, we had a great time. I had a wonderful time doing it.
Just the nature of the duplicitousness of the characters and just the nastiness of, how everybody treated one another. What was it like when, director says cut and you guys go off, you go to craft service or whatever. Do you hang out? Do you talk? There's some actors kind of like stay in their own lane because they don't want to like ruin the feeling or momentum of what's going on in the scene?
Yes, I'd say it varies from person to person and from day to day. If you have a lot to do, everybody knows it. I mean, there was one brilliant. Kieran was just, I just was so taken by what he did. It was the one with the UTI where he had a UTI and he had a long phone call with the president, I think it was. It was very long, and he just was brilliant every time he did it. And that day, everybody stayed away. Kieran, everybody, he had to go in the back and take his time. But there's a lot of time for, conversation, and the cast was so fun and funny and prepared. And Sarah Snook, need I say more? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all three of them, Jeremy Strong, Sarah Snook, Kieran Culkin, just amazing. And it's weird, as I went back and watched it, I'm like, I can't imagine any other actors playing those roles. I mean, I constantly saw these three wounded kids who just never got love when they were growing up. And I mean, you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think the show got better. I think it developed. And all I mean is that it got more comfortable. I mean, that's a common thing, right? It takes a season or two to sort of fill your legs and stuff. And I mean, the first season was terrific, and surprising. But I think as time went on, the writers got to understand Kieran, and Kieran got to understand what he was doing there. And I think that grew. I would say that I thought that grew until the end. And Sarah's always been like she's just a fine violin. She's a Stradivarius, and she played every note, right? I mean, one of the things that is never mentioned it's so funny actually, about Sarah is her voice. We have, the tonal range of Americans is like, right over there. That's about it. And she goes, oh, I didn't know Daddy did. And part of that's Australian. The funny thing about it is that when she was in drama school, I heard voice teachers said, darling, your voice, you will never become an actress. Your voice, darling.
Wow.
And that's to me, I don't know why nobody mentions it. It's like a burbling brook.
Huh.
She's got a little laugh or something. Even when her dad says something horrible to her, she says, "Well, Dad," she's got a little laugh in there comes in her.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's really the cadence of so many of the characters too, and that's the writing,
Yes.
where there's like this kind of bit of a stutter step. So, what? Like, is that what you're really? I
Yes.
mean, and a lot of and you kind of, I mean, I even saw it with Madsen, who wasn't part of the family.
Yeah.
He kind of adopted that kind of rhythm as well.
Yeah. No, they're very careful with everything. And I'll go back to Jesse. I mean, I guess I think probably more this last season. He was there for the first take or second take of every scene. Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I don't know. And the funniest thing, I've said this before, but we were in Zagreb, and we were staying in this some wonderful hotel. The old, oh God, what was it? The Grand Hotel of Zagreb. I don't know. Where the train from Turkey used to come and stuff. Right? It's great. It was so it's a great place. But here's Jesse, and he's got all the edits of previous shows to watch. He's got all the dailies to watch. He's got the auditions to come in and choose people, all that kind of stuff. And I came into breakfast, and he was sitting there reading a book.
Wow.
He didn't have black under his eyes. He wasn't like staring and smoking and drinking coffee. He's reading a book. It was
wow. So let me ask you for an interpretation.
Okay.
So when Tom and Shiv are in the back of the limo and he puts his hand out and she sort of lays her hand on top of his,
yeah.
What do you think that means?
I think that was the two moments that I remember most from me that I don't know why, but I do remember the most. The first one was when Connor says, "Oh, we think it'll be good living on two coasts."
Yeah, right.
It just broke my heart after all they'd been through. And remember the last little scene in the bedroom when she says, "I won't leave you."
Yes.
And I believed her. That broke my heart. You could look on Connor's face of like, nothing is going to be good for me. That was so. And the other one was that moment. And I will tell you my reaction when I didn't know it was going to come. And he says, we got to drive you if you want to. And he gets in the car. She's there. He puts his hand out. She puts her hand on his. And I saw a suicidal woman who lives the rest of her life with an oath. Maybe they even have kids, but desperately unhappy. I think she died that day. She died inside, and she's dead.
Yeah, it was a very submissive move, putting that hand on top. Yeah.
And just the way she put her hand there, excuse me, it wasn't like she held his hand like, okay, we're a team now. It was like, okay, I lost, and now this is my fate.
Horrible. I guess if there were any gesture from the whole show, I don't know. But what a deal, right? It wasn't a line. It was one person did one thing, and it took 1 second, and it's like, it just will stay with me.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
So Karl is obviously going to get a golden parachute. This is me thinking forward. What do you think he does with the rest of his life? Like I see him on a golf cart every day. What do you think Karl winds up doing?
It's going to either he's going to go back and they're all craven, and if Tom needs him, he'll hire him. I don't care what he does. Sure, he can call me a cunt all day, but if he needs the best COO in the our CFO in the business, it's me, and I'll easily go back and fight another fight. If that doesn't work out, I think he's on his Greek island with his brother-in-law. And he is, friends of Salman Rushdie and Elon Musk and Clinton, and runs in those circles. Mitt Romney,
sure,
all those the top of the top. That's where he's going to end up, and socializing, has a beautiful villa there, and That's what I think.
Sounds like a nice life for Karl.
And I hope it happens to me personally too.
I wanted to ask you in creating your character along, aside from what, you knew about your character, did you ever sit down with Jesse and did he ever say anything or give you something that made you say, oh, okay, well, I didn't see Karl that way, or, oh, wow, that is a great note on who this guy is.
Yeah, I didn't talk to Jesse much about it. The first thing he said to me, because he hired me, I wasn't even in the script. He just hired me because he knew me. And I don't think he quite knew how I was going to fit in the first season. I wasn't really part of the design. But I showed up the very first day. It was not the pilot, the very first episode. And I said, who is this guy? And Jesse said, well, he's a shark.
Yeah.
So that I don't know why, but that meant a great deal. And so that is always in the back of my mind that's what we're talking about here. And I think what happened is that everyone's function everyone's function except for the kids was to illuminate the characters of the kids. That's why we were there. He wasn't interested. Jesse was not interested. He was interested in the family. He was interested in the dynamics of that family. And, Karl gets caught sleeping with his best friend's wife and Logan has to get it. Not interested.
Yep.
That's right. Not what the show is about. The show is, any other show could have done that, and if we'd have gone for 10 years under other supervision, we may have done that, because it's like, well, the Goofy family, what'll happen next? This wasn't about the Goofy family, what will happen next. This is about Succession. That's the name of it. That's why he ended it. Because
were you okay with it ending after? Obviously it's a great job, but from a narrative perspective, did you think, 4 years?
Brilliant. Third, to kill off your main character in the third episode? Yes. That is the greatest single act of courage I have ever seen in any showrunner, any writer. It's unbelievable. And to end on the end, it isn't done.
Yeah.
So,
it's just not done. And I die Egypt, what is it? Rosebud, none of that.
Yeah,
right.
Oh no, he dies an ignominious, an ignoble death, a horrible death. He goes, something goes wrong. He falls down on the bathroom floor and dies. It's like, no, none of this. What really happens when these things happen? That's what really happens. So I thought it was terrific. And I think that, I was just thinking about it. I don't know if this is true, but I'll make it up. I told you the story about Sacha Baron Cohen, but, Jesse knew he had to come through with it. This is it. And I wasn't really, after 3, I got worried because I was worried about 4. Because, what could have happened is that people said, terrible. God, they shouldn't have killed him. Oh, this show has really lost it. Oh, no, I'm never watching this again. Au contraire.
Yeah.
When 3 was over and 4 was completely different.
Yep.
Right.
Totally different tone with all this kind of stuff with Tom. You squarely, we're finally and squarely fucked. And that whole thing and all the comedy was right after this wrenching tragedy. Nobody could talk after 3. I couldn't. You just kind of sat there after having been taken on this crazy journey. So anyway, the answer is I think that it's one of the brilliant strokes in television history. And I think that he ended it the way it had to end, and that is badly. Everything ended badly. Tom is just the worst human in the world. He's just
right.
a person. And if he wasn't a terrible person, he became a terrible person, and you watched him become a terrible person. I don't think he was a terrible person at the beginning. He's kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And a climber.
Right.
Yes, definitely. Yes, and liked the shiny things.
Right. And
And-
no surprise that he, connected with Greg because they were both peas in a pod.
I guess so.
Just
suppose so.
just that desperation, to be,
Yes.
at the top, and to be in on everything.
But Greg was such an easy prey.
Yes.
For him to
Yes.
like just completely rake over the coals and humiliate and that I think that was a lot of their relationship. But I thought the ending, I thought the ending was as we now look back, inevitable.
Yeah.
Right.
So Succession is one of my 5 favorite shows of all time already. And you were in another one of my top 5 of all time, and that is VEEP, which is so damn funny. What's it like being a character in an ensemble cast with really, really funny people like that?
Well, you're talking about Julia Louie Dreyfuss, and I remember one time she is so incandescent. First of all, she's a wonderful, kind, approachable, funny person. So it's all easy around her. But I remember one time she was going through, there's a collection of people, and I was supposed to say something like, you'll be great tonight, or I don't know what it was. But when she came down, I was so mesmerized by this woman walking down, smiling, saying hello to everybody, that I forgot my lines. I forgot to talk. I just was like, I lost myself, which is interesting because that's what's his name? Olivia used to say that, never, what is this? Never lose yourself in another actor. Wait, I'm really not that popular. Never lose yourself in another actor. And I did. I lost it. They had to go back and do it again because I forgot to talk. That's another situation where that was more of a comic situation. And everybody was always trying to think of new lines. So the number of alternates that you had in any given scene was like 100. Try when you say, I don't know, it's thousands of lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that the director or whoever, I guess maybe the writers, they just like shout things out, because that's how Judd Apatow works.
Yes.
He just shouts stuff out at you like one after another.
They didn't, and I'm not. They did sometimes. They did that, but I'm not always crazy about that particular style of directing. Only because you're trying to do something and somebody says, try it more angry. What? I'm trying to do a scene here.
Right.
I don't enjoy that. But you're talking about throwing lines in.
Lines, not style.
But that is the new style of directing, and it's not a lot of fun. It's usually what you do is you do the scene, and then somebody gives you a note, you'll do it again. I'm fine. But they're yelling things on every line, which I don't enjoy. But that's not about Succession. Yes, Veep. What are the others?
Oh, well,
the other ones, I would say for me, The Wire,
yes,
The Sopranos,
yeah,
and Breaking Bad.
Okay, all right.
What about for you? 5?
I'm not going to tell you.
You did really secret.
I'm not going to tell you. Sid Caesar, the Sid, your show shows. Ernie Kovacs, that's number 2. But see, I'm really old, so those are the.
But
days.
they are classics. They are classics.
Oh yeah.
But I was there when they were just on, and I can still remember being all alone in my room, in the family room, with a black and white television, like 8:00 at night in the dark on a Friday night or something. Nobody's around, and I'm watching. It's just me and Ernie Kovacs.
Wow.
Oh God, that was just. And same thing with Show of Shows. My goodness, Sid Caesar. He was so damn funny, all of them. Howard Morris, and Steve Allen too. I have to say, with Louis Nye and all those guys. Those were heroes of mine.
Right.
Sue
Yeah.
actually went back and watched the pilot for Sledge Hammer to get ready for this.
Well, it was sort of funny, right?
Oh my God. Well, I'm actually friendly with Alan Spencer. I know Alan a really, really long time, and he's a hysterical guy.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen the show on, the last time I saw the show was when the show was on the air in the 80s. And God, it was funny. it was just, what a great character. And, I think of like, cause I love silly, like I love, like Get Smart, you know, Police Academy, Airplane, Naked Gun, and it really, really was in that vein.
Preceded all of those. Not Get Smart, but it preceded all the rest of those. And I think they borrowed from it. I think Sledgehammer, some of them hold up and some don't. This is my opinion about Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Some are just, but a lot of them still do hold up. And very funny idea.
Hey, last question for you.
Yes.
You're shooting Succession.
Yes.
At what point did you know, wow, this is magic?
I guess, this season more than ever, because as I either said or didn't say, there have been at least 2 articles every day in every major newspaper on Succession. Right. Every possible angle is being, Shakespeare, the big bag, the clothes, what do rich people really wear? The language, Shakespeare. I mean, it's an endless, thing to look at through different prisms. And I said that before. I said at the beginning. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really knew until after it was all over just exactly how big it was. I don't think anybody knew.
Well, it is an unbelievable show. You give a very memorable performance. We will all remember Karl without question. David, thank you so much for doing this, man. We really appreciate it.
Not at all. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for having me.
And there he is, David Rasche. Wow. I mean, he mentioned 2 articles every day. I mean, I've read every speculative piece about what things might mean and where they came from and all that. Just down the rabbit hole on Succession. It's so amazing.
Yeah, and he was talking about how Jesse Armstrong, he was saying like, will Americans grasp the fact that a British guy or, team or whatever is writing a show about Americans. Yeah. And I watch more British shows than I do American shows for the writing.
Yeah.
I just think that the British series have so much depth and the language, and it's just a different animal. And it's not to say that I don't think American shows are, there are no good American shows. It's just on a whole different level to me.
Yeah. Well, and they capture some of that and used it in Succession, obviously, with Jesse, who's a Brit. And as he mentioned, a lot of the writers are British, and I'm sure watching the same stuff that you've been watching for. I don't see a lot of British stuff. You do, but I'm sure that's partly where that depth comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Succession, great show. I would tell you to watch it, except chances are, if you're listening to or watching this podcast, you already have seen it. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the Culture Pop Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or check it out at stevemason.com. And we're on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com and search Culture Pop Podcast and see everything. The pictures are great. The words are one thing. The pictures, even better. Sue, great to see you. Thanks a lot. And we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.